how did I get started? I came into preaching almost through the back door. I love the scriptures, and I've always loved the scriptures. And I was one of the first lectors in the old parish in the city when I was much younger. And I can remember one day, and I think there'd been a little rumble in the parish about this new thing and a woman on the altar. And I looked out at the people, and I was just overwhelmed by the fact that I loved them all. And so I was a lector for many years before I went to work at St. Bernard's and started taking theology courses. While I was doing that, I became registrar and director of admissions. Part of that job was going out to recruit students in different parishes. So some of the priests invited me to preach at homily time. And I remember one former preaching professor who said, well, I should talk about St. Bernard's. And I said, no, that's not good liturgy. You talk about the scriptures at homily time, and then you talk about St. Bernard's at the end of Mass, which is what I did. And then when a parish opening came, I became a pastoral associate, and I was on the regular preaching schedule. And I realized how much I really loved it, because I loved the people and I loved the scripture, and I just wanted God to touch hearts through me somehow. But it's work. It's really hard work. And there would be weeks that it would be Friday on the calendar and maybe Tuesday on the preparation schedule, and I'd be tearing my hair out. And then I would say, okay, first of all, this is not about me. And secondly, God, for some reason, you have me here and you've given me this ministry. So the rest is up to you. You've got to do something. And invariably, God did. Even if the last minute, it would all come together. So I did that for a number of years before I became a campus minister. Then I was on a schedule for every other week. And I thought we really had a wonderful relationship, my colleague and I, and provided a model of mutuality in ministry for the students. So it's the part of my ministry that I probably miss the most. Now, in terms of preparation, I mentioned, the preparation schedule. I would always start on the Sunday before, if not sooner, going over the readings for the day very carefully, hoping that something would pop up and kind of grab me. Sometimes that took a while. And after I'd prayed with them every day for a few days, then I would go and look at the commentaries and see, okay, what did the scripture scholars say about this? What was really happening at the time? And I would look at the previous Sunday's scripture and the following Sunday's scripture and see what the connections might be for that. One of the things I feel very strongly about is that the scripture has to connect. The homily has to connect the scripture to our everyday life. And I think that is one of the strongest values of lay preaching. I remember going to a preaching conference at Collegeville, at the Liturgical Center at St. John's in Collegeville, and being so struck by this one person who told fabulous stories. One was about this friend who was worried about his children and how the preacher could connect with that And the story unfolded about their conversations and how the friendship developed and how this other person had the same kind of concerns about family. And in the closing line, the preacher revealed that the friend was a prisoner. And then another story that he told was about how, as a young person, he would always visit his grandmother, and she made homemade bread. And he told the story of the bread making in a way that we who were at the conference knew where he was headed. But the entire homily was about the grandmother and the bread making and using Eucharistic symbols and how that nourished them and so forth. And again, not till the last line, I never saw Jesus as closely as I did in my grandmother making bread. So I learned the value of stories. And I try, although it doesn't always come easily to me, I try always to have some everyday stories to connect, because you have to connect with what's going on in people's lives. Two good pieces of advice that I got as I started in this was that the best homilies come from having scripture in one hand and the daily paper in the other. And the other advice came from another woman preacher who said, you should always be able to condense the homily to one sentence. Little did she know that I speak in complex sentences all the time. But I've always kept that in mind and tried to keep coming back to it. So, and in the beginning, I would be doing everything by hand. There would be pages of foolscap with handwriting and piles on the floor. And I finally learned to compose on the computer. I never thought I'd be able to. But the cutting and pasting, because you start out with lots of different thoughts and maybe some input from other people, because again, it's good to bounce ideas. I always say I get through life much better with help from my friends. So that all goes into the process.